Welcome to A Mick, A Mook, and A Mike.
Hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer
Frank Pace. And retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
Today's guest, Ballard Smith.
My brother
Frankie. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Good. We got Ballard Smith on today, former president of the San Diego Padres, son-in-law of Ray Kroc. He's going to be an interesting guest.
Yeah, fascinating guy. I mean, youngest DA and...
youngest DA.
He's the youngest DA. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting guest.
Yeah,
definitely.
But how was your Thanksgiving?
Good, when you had the meatloaf and whatever goes with it, and all the fixings.
Watch a little football?
I always watch a little football, but I'm getting kind of browned off of it now. I don't know why. I'm not as well. I guess I don't gamble anymore on it.
That would do it.
There's a lot. It's sort of like paint watches football dry now. Instead of. It used to be every play was like but I don't know. I still think the officials got a lot to do with the outcome of this game.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I really do. I did somebody's calls. When I see defensive holding in the interior line, it drives me nuts.
Watch the guys under the goalpost on field goals or extra points. They all look at each other before they put their arms up or say it's no good. It doesn't make any difference if this is the goalpost and the football goes over here. They look at each other first before they.
They're 2 yards out, 1 yard out from the goal line, and the fullback hits the spot. And you can't see anything. It's like a scrum. It's like a rugby scrum.
Yeah.
And yet they're trying to. Was he over? Was he not over? His knee hit. And then I don't know. It's it seems like there's a flag every other play now too.
Yeah, it
really does. I mean, it's.
He's so somber still.
Who?
Billy.
Oh, Billy.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to give me some shit about being somber or dour or whatever the fuck it is.
No, I'm sanguine.
You're sanguine.
I'm sanguine. Cautiously optimistic about our future.
Oh, yeah.
I'm somber.
Yeah. No, he's You're Billy.
I'm all right.
No, he's got a little bit of the edges off a little bit, like a little sparkle has.
Yeah, well, that's
a little something inside his died.
He ate the tryptophan in the Thanksgiving turkey.
Okay.
He's still asleep.
A little something inside me has died. Yeah. I don't know, man. I guess we're coming to the end of the race, you know what I mean? We're not playing the back nine anymore, we're playing the
last three.
Finish strong.
Hey, Bill,
I got to give you this quote because I just talking about playing the back nine or whatever. This guy's talking about Mars, right? They're looking for water on Mars.
Yeah.
Just send me up there with a 7 on. I'll find water, trees, sand. I'll find the thing you're looking for.
Do you give any thought to mortality? Your own? Or mine, or yours, or Derek's?
Well, we already got you figured out. You're going to live for 30 years. You made a deal with the devil or something.
I did make a deal with the devil.
You're all set.
I just gave him a check for $900.
Oh, my God.
That's enough to do it. I might be able to script that up. Mortality. I got one leg in the grave, another one on a banana peel. I'm done.
Well, good thing you married that nurse to take care of you.
Oh
yeah. Oh shucks.
I better get the whole team. I need a team of psychiatrists, Frank. I think I got to go to Austria. I don't need a shrink. I need a whole bunch of them. I need like a whole team. Take a look and see what's going on inside.
Well, they better let me know if they find out what's wrong with you.
Oh.
Well, we've cut it up enough. Why don't you bring in our guest today, Ballard Smith?
Ballard Smith. Yeah, this could be interesting.
Hey, Ballard, how are you? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
We can.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
It's a
Good morning.
pleasure to have you.
Glad to be here with you guys.
Nice to meet you.
That's my partner, Billy.
Pleasure.
Billy, what's your name? Oh, Billy O'Connor.
Last I looked, it was O'Connor.
Billy O'Connor. That's Derek Harris.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
How are you, Ballard? Nice to know you.
Well,
brother.
the winter meetings are upon us. What are your recollections as former president of the Padres of the winter meetings?
Well, I think historically the winter meetings have been the real starting point of signing a lot of free agents and hopefully starting trade talks. And I assume it's the same now as it was then when I was there.
When did you join the Padres?
So I joined him in 1976, the end of 76, and then I was there till 1987.
And you were president of the Padres, correct?
President of the Padres, yes.
Wow.
I actually became president in 1979. I had the title, I think, executive vice president until then, but essentially at that point, after Buzzy Pavesi had left, I was effectively acting as president.
But you started out as a youngest DA.
I don't know if I was the youngest. I was young. I was 29. Probably far too young to be a DA, but I didn't have enough sense to realize it at the time, I guess.
But you're a rising star. I mean, I read when I was doing the research on you, you got disillusioned by politics. That flipped me out right away. I wanted to know what disillusioned you and your present views about the political situation in America now. I'd really like to know that. What disillusioned you?
I would qualify today as being a exceptional political whore. And the reason I say that is that the county that I was practicing in was a Republican county. And at the time I was a registered Democrat. And the district attorney was a Republican. And he had asked me to be his assistant, one of his assistants, which I was. And then when he retired, he came to me and he said, I want you to run for my job. I said, I don't know. This is a Republican county. And he said, okay, here's the deal. If you'll agree to run as a Republican, we'll make sure nobody runs against you in the primary.
Of course.
Wow. The reason that was attractive to me was that the lawyer that ended up running against me as a Democrat had been in the county a lot longer than I had been. And I might well have not beaten him in the Democratic primary. So in my infinite wisdom, I decided to change parties. Although I will say this, it meant a lot less back then than it does today.
Yeah. Well, some devil's advocates would say stuff like, well, there's no difference, both parties are the same. We're all going to get screwed no matter what happens,
Why are you looking this way, Billy?
Well, that's just to play devil's advocate, some people would say. But yet, so do you feel, that the divisiveness in today's politics, was that what you feel that was always there? Was that when you first?
Well, when I was a kid, both the Republican and Democratic parties had members that ran the whole spectrum of political beliefs. Republican Party was more conservative, the Democratic Party was more liberal, but there certainly were people in both parties that had a wide range of views. And now it just seems that we're so polarized. It's really kind of
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I got fireman buddies of mine, the Facebook friends or whatever, fireman buddies that I see, and most of them are right wing, and that's just the way it is. And I just think Democrats are scum, and I say to myself, I know 3 Democrats who were friends of mine that died in 9/11. Do you think they were scum? They were inside the building. I saw a good buddy of mine get his head blown off in Vietnam. He was a Democrat. How many Democrats died on D-Day?
Of course.
It's just so bad. It's like, what really made you disillusioned? Just with politics, that you decided to go a different route?
Well, that people can't talk to each other. To say that if you're a Democrat, you have to vote for everything that the Democratic Party puts forth, or vice versa if you're a Republican. That doesn't make any sense to me. That you've seen families divided, and somebody was telling me today that the past few days therapists have been very busy just because of family issues. One of my best friends that I went to law school with 100 years ago. We go hiking. We go hiking all over the world. He loves Trump. He loves Trump for economic reasons. Yeah, we used to get in arguments about it. And one day I was sitting with him and his wife, and we got in a pretty heated discussion. And finally I said, okay, wait a minute. We've all been friends too long. We love each other. Let's just don't talk about politics anymore. And, we'll joke around about it. And, I called him after the election and said, okay, vote. But I think the thing that's too bad is that it's really ruined a lot of friendships.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
On night court, right after the election, we had to bring in therapy dogs.
Really?
Therapy.
But this is one of the great things about sports. And one of the things that I noticed at the playoff games against the Dodgers is just the electricity in the stands.
Yep.
Yeah.
You watch people hugging each other.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you there are people hugging each other that if they knew one was a Democrat, one was a Republican, they'd probably run away from each other.
Yeah.
Well, there wasn't much hugging going on in San Diego, unfortunately. How did you feel the playoffs worked out? I mean, the two best teams in baseball, in my belief, played were the Padres and the Dodgers.
Well, as you know, once you get in the playoffs, it's a little bit of a crapshoot. A lot of it's going to depend on pitching. The one thing that I will say that I thought this was the first time that we played at the Dodgers in a series that we expected to win the series.
Yep.
In the past, it's always been, we hope we can win. I felt the Padres were the better team. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. Everybody can second guess the reasons, but it just happened they didn't win. If they played again, they might well win the series.
What was the reason, in your opinion, that they lost? I know you said pitching. Are there any other reasons?
One of and I'm not really all that close to it,
Okay.
but I just kind of have a sense that they don't have that real veteran leadership in the clubhouse.
Okay.
Like you guys had in '84 with Garvey and Nettle and Gossage, guys that had been there and had won.
Yeah, Garvey, Gossage, Nettles, Templeton, and they were leaders, and they also were mentors to all the young players we had. And my sense is that they need more leadership in that clubhouse.
It's funny. Dave Roberts was one game from being fired, and now he's a Hall of Fame manager. It's, had they lost to the Padres in that fourth game, Dave Roberts probably would have gotten fired. And now he's on the edge of being. Now it gives me great pleasure to say now he's equaled what Lasorda did, and he will surpass Lasorda in the future, because I think they're going to be a powerhouse for many years. It doesn't mean they will win every year, but it means they'll be a powerhouse.
I have a question about that. Okay, so that's true. I think you're right about Dave Roberts, but I wonder about that choice. So they won in 2020, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then didn't they play Texas and Texas cheated? Was it
Houston?
Houston. Okay, Houston.
But that doesn't mean that they would have won.
Oh.
Because Houston also cheated against the Yankees, so the Yankees could have beat Houston, and then the Yankees may have beaten the Dodgers in the World Series. So you can't say that the Dodgers were cheated out of the World Series. They were cheated out of a chance. They were cheated out of a chance to play for the World Series, and I'll be interested in Ballard's take on this.
Huh.
But doesn't mean necessarily that they were cheated out of the World Series.
Okay, Ballard.
Look, I think Dave Roberts is an outstanding manager. And I thought he did a very good job, especially with his pitching staff.
Yep.
This year, and for him, I'm glad that he'll continue to be the Dodgers manager. I don't know a lot about the cheating thing. It's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has been going on for a long
It's
time.
about stealing signs, right? Is that
yeah,
what we're talking about?
I mean,
the cheating?
the 51 Giants, Sal Evars was in the center field holding up signs, to the Giants when Bobby Thompson hit the home run. So was that cheating? Yeah, of course. But cheating was a part of the game, as was taking out the second baseman on a double play, as was, bunting to break up a perfect game.
And on and on.
And on and on and on. How'd you get into the sports business?
I kind of laugh because life's all about opportunities.
Yeah.
In my case, my father-in-law Ray Kroc bought the Padres in 1974.
And what did Ray Kroc do prior to that?
Yeah, who is this Ray Kroc?
Who is
guy?
this Ray Kroc guy you're talking about?
He used to sell multi-mixers.
Yeah.
He's selling multi-mixers to these McDonald brother guys, trying to get them to open more restaurants so he could sell them more multi-mixers.
Oh.
That was kind of the start. It's
Yes.
really kind of,
Wow.
no, he was. I remember when I first met Ray, and he was probably, I don't know, his 60s or maybe he was in his 70s. I mean, I'm 78 now. I mean, I thought he was an old guy. And then when somebody told me that he had started McDonald's when he was 52 years old, I thought, whoa, how do old people do that?
Derek, how old are you now?
I'm 54, so.
54. I
Yeah.
thought you were 52.
Have you noticed that the policemen are all getting younger? Have you noticed that they're all getting younger?
Yeah.
Everybody seems to be getting younger.
So you married his stepdaughter?
I married his stepdaughter. We had 4 daughters. We were married, I don't know, I think 16 or 17 years. There probably wasn't a real good reason for us to get divorced. There was a lot of, family stuff, public stuff going on. We're still great friends. We do family events together. She had ended up remarrying a high school sweetheart. We ended up becoming friends, and we would all go out to dinner. Unfortunately, he passed away earlier in the year, and unfortunately, my wife passed away just recently. So,
Wow.
Sorry to hear that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Pal.
Sorry to hear that.
and I appreciate that. But we have an amazing family. Got
4
3
daughters?
daughters,
Yeah.
and 15 biological grandchildren.
Wow.
Wow.
That's great. That's great. What was it like when Linda brought you home to meet Ray and Joan for the first time?
Ray's. I had met Linda's biological father, and he was a friend of a law school classmate of mine. They played golf together, and so I knew him, and I think he had 3 McDonald's in Rapid City. And so one weekend we went down to Chicago, where I grew up, and Joan and Ray had this apartment up on the, upper floors of one of the high rises overlooking Lake Michigan. I don't think I really comprehended what was going on,
Right.
to be perfectly honest.
The
You
whole
weren't
time.
intimidated at all.
The whole time. So the whole time you just never really, it was never apparent to you.
Well, I figured it out after I figured it out.
Not being dangerously unobservant, you figured it out.
So you went from the district attorneys, and I guess Ray had also bought the San Diego Mariners of the World Hockey Association. So you did your training for the Padres with the San Diego Mariners?
So I was about a year into I'd been elected district attorney. I was about 4 years into a term, and Joan and Ray came to me and said, we really would like you to move to San Diego, and we want you to be our eyes and ears. Ray was becoming disillusioned because the team really wasn't getting much better. And so the intent was that I would be lawyer for the team and just kind of keep an eye on things. And never, ever once did I dream about being president of a baseball club. I grew up loving baseball. I was a White Sox fan and a Cubs fan. And so just the opportunity to be involved in sports was amazing. But again, it was never my intent to end up being president.
And what's that job like? What's the experience? So obviously, I would love to hear about day one. So you walk in and
Day one with the Padres?
Yes.
Or day one with, okay.
as president,
Day one as president, so it's 1979.
they walk you in and they go, "This is your office and this is your bathroom."
Well, I think I'm trying to think. It probably was. I think I got so Buzzy Bavasi got fired.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of an interesting story. I'm sitting up watching a game one night, and I hear this argument. And Buzzy had gotten in an argument with my mother-in-law, which doesn't seem very smart. So then
Especially when the team older.
Buzzy goes storming out,
Wow.
and everybody else that had been in the box had left too, except I'm there with it. And I walk up, and I heard Joan say to Ray, "Get rid of him."
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and so Buzzy, Ray fired Buzzy the next day. And then a couple days later, he calls me and he says, "I need to talk to you." We come over and he said, "I've been listening to all these baseball people, and why don't you see what you can do with this?"
Do with what?
So what you gonna do what?
Fortunately, I had enough sense to go to people like Elton Schiller, who ran the business side, and Jerry Coleman, who was a great resource. And I just tried to listen to as much as I could and learn as much as I could as quickly as I could.
And you were pretty pompous in those days. I read.
Oh.
I don't pompous. Pompous. was the term used to describe you in the early 80s.
Yeah. I'm really very, very shy.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I get it.
And the thought of me when I was a kid, ever getting up and making a speech or being on a podcast like this,
Yeah.
been beyond comprehension. So I think it was really more of my defense mechanism.
Yeah.
And clearly, if I had to do it over again, there's things I wouldn't have said. Now, the other thing is, I've been sober for 32 years. So the entire time I was with the Padres, I was drinking and had developed a drinking problem. That's not an excuse.
Billy is Billy.
Sometimes when you,
Billy is a friend of Bill also.
Oh yeah, been a friend of Bill for a long time.
well, sometimes when you're drinking, you kind of say things you maybe wouldn't say when you weren't drinking.
Kinda, you think?
I'm still capable of doing that, just not as regular.
Right.
When I'm drunk, I speak 7 languages. The problem is I speak them all at once. That's get a little confusing.
So how did you go about rebuilding the Padres to the point that in 1984 you had Tony Gwynn, you had Garvey, you had Templeton, you had all of those people, Goose Gossage. How did you go about rebuilding the Padres to become a National League champion?
So, one of Ray's theories and Ray Kroc's theories, and one of his brilliances, was that he believed in hiring good people, telling them what was expected of them, and then letting them do their job. And when I got there, Elton Schiller was running the business side, and he'd been with Buzzy up with the Dodgers, and I mean he was a terrific resource, and so as you know, in 80 or 81, I hired Jack McKeon, and Jack got the job on an interim basis after Bob Fontaine was let go. And I had told Jack, "You're not going to get the permanent job. Ray wants somebody with a name and a lot of experience." Yeah, but I said, do the job if it's yours. And so over the next 3 or 4 months, I interviewed a bunch of people. but Jack also started to do things, and I liked the way he did it. So I went to Ray and we talked, and we decided to give Jack a chance. And kind of at that point, and then the second thing I did was I hired a CFO by the name of Dick Freeman. And basically my job became, if there's issues that they can't handle, I'll get involved. And in the case of building the team, for example, well, the other kind of backstory is Ray had a stroke in 1979, and Joan came to me and said, look, we put $10 million in this team. I don't want to put any more money into it. You've got to run it based on the revenue you can generate. So when it came time to sign Steve Garvey, I mean, obviously there was no way Jack McKeon was going to sign Steve Garvey because we had to find some money. And so what I did was I went to a friend of mine by the name of Scott Jones, who owned Ace Parking in San Diego. And I said, Scott, this is a situation. I need to put together some money so I can go back to Joan and show her that we can afford to sign him. And of course, my pitch was, we signed Steve Garvey, we're going to sell more tickets, it's going to generate more parking revenue. Scott Jones never hesitated 1 second. And he's kind of one of the unsung heroes of us being able to sign Garvey. Because I then went to my friend Paul Palmer at KFMB, got the radio and TV station to put in some money, went to Joan and Ray, and we were able to sign Steve. And I think that was one of the starts. And of course, before that, we'd signed Dick Williams. And basically, Jack was not too excited about signing Dick Williams.
And Dick Williams had been the manager of the Oakland A's for their 3 championships during the 70s, and Jack had been a manager of the Kansas City Royals for many years, so they had a relationship. And
wow, look at Frank.
Two baseball guys.
Jack really wanted to be both manager and general manager. And it was kind of, and Dick obviously had a lot of success, and you don't have to do a lot of research on him to find out that the players aren't necessarily very big fans of his. I've probably never seen anyone manage a baseball game better than him, but he could also be kind of a royal pain. And after we signed him, I got a call from Charles Brockman, who owned the Montreal Expos, and they let Dick go a few months before. And he said to me, I don't care how many times you win the World Series, someday you're going to regret that you hired this man.
Wow.
And I wouldn't go that far.
However, yeah.
Wow. Really, that bad, huh?
And when you signed Goose Gossage, I understand Steinbrenner wouldn't talk to Jack McKeon. And he wanted to talk to one of the owners.
That was actually Nettles.
Nettles, okay.
Yeah, so that was Nettles. But the Gossage story is, I think, kind of interesting too. Again, when we started to get into what was bigger money back then, Jack really would not have the ability to sign people like that. And so what happened with Gossage was that Dick Freeman, our CFO, came up with this plan to put together an annuity and try to convince Goose and his agent that the total value of the annuity was part of the total value of the contract. Now, the reality is that I don't know what the annuity probably ended up paying him out $2 or $3 million, and I think it cost us $700,000 or $800,000.
Was that the first time that was ever done? That kind of innovative financing, creative financing?
I don't really know. But all I know is that it had worked for us, and I'm obviously glad it did.
Tell us a little bit about Tony Gwynn.
You know, I was reading Jack McKeon's biography, and of course, he loves to take credit for signing Tony Gwynn. But what I tell people is, Tony was the fourth player that we took in the draft that year. We'd had he was taken in the third round, but we'd had a supplemental pick after the second round, and I knew Tony because he was from San Diego,
Right. Point guard for the Aztecs.
and I also knew him because Jim Dietz, who was the coach at San Diego State, kept calling me about him. He said, "You gotta sign this guy." So obviously, we drafted him, but I don't know that anyone can claim to be a genius. So we drafted him, and the fourth player we took. I mean, there probably were 100+ players taken before Tony Gwynn by the rest, by all the other major league teams.
Wow.
So, in that case, we were lucky.
Lucky. Wow.
Lucky. Well,
We've heard that before.
And he became Mr. San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, how many players have started and ended their career in the same city?
Yeah.
None now, basically.
No. He was such a great guy. I knew Tony well, as I knew John Boggs well, as I knew Andy Strasburg well. I didn't really know you, even though I was handling the marketing for the Padres in '83 and '84. But Tony was just the best. He was just the best.
Absolutely. I always felt that if he hadn't ended up having that weight problem at the end of his career, that he might well have ended up breaking Pete Rose's hit record.
Wow.
He might have.
Wow.
He might. A hurdle would have been his 4 years that he spent in college,
Right.
whereas Pete Rose came out in '89 or something. But
Pete Rose came out right after high school?
Pete Rose came out. Of course, Pete Rose came out of the high school. What college was going to take Pete Rose? So in that '84 team, you had guys who came out as John Birchers. You had Eric Shaw, you had Lefferts, you had Dave Dravecki. And on the other side, you had Dick Williams as the manager. How did you navigate those feelings with those younger players?
You mean besides wanting to make them go stand in the corner for a while, or? I sat down and talked to him. I said, "Look, you're entitled to your political views. I'd appreciate it if you keep them to yourself. We're trying to create a community spirit for this team. We don't want to do anything that might be divisive." So that was the pitch.
Yeah. How was that accepted by them? I mean, Eric Shaw was pretty outspoken. And maybe out of the three of them, he was the most outspoken of them all. But you had...
I guess the good news is there wasn't the social media back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine it'd be much more of a firestorm today.
Yeah. Because, you had such a mixture of young players and old players that you're talking about. How did the veterans treat them? The younger players that were right wingers, and they really came out and said they were members of the John Birch Society.
Yeah, I don't think it really had an impact. One of the reasons we were trying to put together a team that would get to the World Series before Ray Kroc died.
Right.
He had a stroke in '79. He was just about to turn 80, which back then seemed ancient, but now that I'm 78, it doesn't seem so ancient. And so we were trying to build a team to win now, as opposed to the long haul, because obviously Gossage and Nettles and Garvey were getting towards the end of their career. So, that was kind of the plan, and the veterans were great with the young players. But, we obviously needed those veterans to help teach those younger players how to win.
Yeah.
And I think I think Tony Gwynn would tell you that Steve Garvey had a big impact on his career too.
Yeah, I would think that's true. And I guess also that the fact that Dick Williams put together a staff of old-timers and traditional baseball guys, Jack Kroll, Whitey Wiedelman, Clyde McCullough, all those guys were real baseball guys at the heart of it. I mean, Whitey lived underneath the locker room in the stadium. He had been a 15-year career, but he was always the first guy out on the field. What can you say about those three guys?
Yeah, Whitey Wiedelman was probably one of the first people that dealt with what we now call analytics. And basically what he had was this book, and every game he would chart every pitch. And so that was our analytics back then. And again, I think the veteran coaching staff had a big impact on helping develop the younger players that year.
I remember Clyde was pretty feisty guy, and I would remember nobody would. I wanted to say I'll do the cleanup version.
Don't fool around with Jim.
You don't fool around with Clyde, who passed away at 65, and he had a heart attack in a San Francisco motel when the Padres were on a road trip. That broke my heart because Clyde was the best. Clyde was really great. And I remember Clyde as being this really old man. He was 65.
Wow. Yeah.
Now I'm 75. Again, everything's being relative. What was it like when you guys advanced to the World Series?
It was electric in the town. People were out dancing on the streets. I mean, when you think about when we came back from Chicago, having lost those first two games in the playoffs, and there's this huge crowd waiting for us, and I think that had a big impact. And even though we ended up losing the World Series to a great team, the Detroit Tigers, we had this event at the stadium. The stadium was packed with people. They were just so excited. We finally had a team that had a chance to win a championship.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Frank was talking before about the controversy with the John Birch Society and the young guys in the locker room. What about the controversy as an Irishman I got to present to you? Banned beer in the locker room. That must have been an enormous controversy.
I could be funny and say before I went down to ban beer in the clubhouse, I had a couple drinks. I don't remember. I don't think I did. So Joan Kroc was very into the issue of alcohol abuse, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And so she was the one that was really behind that. And if you really think about it, what other business do the workers sit around after the day and
have a couple of beers?
If you think about it, you've got guys that have been out there active for a few hours and sit around and have a couple of drinks and they're going to drive home. Didn't make a lot of sense. Although, as you know, it didn't go over. Of course, Goose was pretty vocal about the whole thing, and of course started talking about McDonald's, which wasn't particularly appreciated. So I went down to the clubhouse one day, and I said, "Goose, you and I need to talk." So we went into Dick Williams' office, and I was sitting in Dick's seat, and Goose was to talk to me across from me, and the conversation started getting pretty heated. And I mean, I actually thought at one point he might come across the table. So then all of a sudden, and now, it's obviously very quiet in the locker room, even though the door's closed, they can hear what's going on. So we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, Goose looks at me, and he started laughing.
He was
So-
just breaking your chops the whole time. He was.
So, yeah, so that kind of broke the ice on the whole thing.
I had read when I was doing the research for you that the liability insurance was up 3,000% in 8 years because of drinking, and that prevented that. Is that true? 3,000% in 8 years.
I don't know that I've heard that stat, but and Dick Freeman, who I said was the CFO, he and I are still friends. I'm going to ask him about that. I don't know the answer to that, but my guess is that liability insurance was a heck of a lot less back then than it is today.
No kidding.
Yeah, wow,
kidding.
without a doubt. Without a doubt. So,
Derek, you got a question?
I just wanted to know about the business. I wanted to know about the business aspect. So, I'm sure there are a bunch of revenue streams now. Modern day baseball versus before, but I could be wrong about that. What's so difficult about generating revenue as a as a person who runs the team or owns the team?
But when I first started, I think about 70% of the revenue came from ticket sales. And, we had concessions, we had some merchandising. There were no signs in the stadium. When I first got there, the Padres televised 15 games.
Oh, okay.
And the total amount of revenue that they got for those 15 games was $5,000.
wow. Unbelievable.
Basically, it was a way to promote the team. Now, not that I was any genius, I was able to turn around and, I renegotiated the contract. I think I renegotiated it for $250,000.
Wow.
Ray thought I was a genius. I may well have left money on the table, but television was in its infancy back then.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't. It wasn't. Now, I mean, back then, Major League Baseball, the crown jewels obviously with the All-Star Game, and the playoffs and the World Series, and they would run the Game of the Week. The Game of the Week was basically a revenue loser. People didn't really want to watch the Game of the Week back then.
Oh.
So, I mean, it's obviously totally changed now. You've got advertising at the stadium. You're starting to see some things on the uniforms. Our top ticket price when I got to the Padres was $7.50 for a box seat.
Oh.
Wow.
We had 30,000 seats that sold for $3 a piece. The
Wow.
minimum salary was $21,000. Pete Rose's goal in life was to be the first $100,000 singles hitter.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Obviously, it's obviously changed.
Well, let me along those lines. Let me ask you what Ray Kroc bought the team for, and what Joan sold the team 4 years later.
So Ray bought it for $12 million, and she sold it, I think, for $75 million.
$75 million.
4 years.
Today it's worth $2 billion.
I don't know. It's worth a lot of money. The Yankees.
Yeah.
Steinbrenner bought it from NBC, I think. For
CBS.
CBS. And I read someplace that they have a television network that's worth as much as the team's worth.
Yeah, he bought it for what, $10 million? He bought the New York Yankees
10 or 12. I
10 or
think.
$12 million. Wow.
Amazing.
Wow. So what are you doing now?
Natural high.
Well, one thing, obviously, trying to deal with the passing of my wife. But I'm fortunate that I've got this big blended family. As I said, I've got 15 grandkids. My wife has 6 grandkids, which I'm grandpa to, and she's got 3 wonderful kids. So I've got, this big, huge blended family. I'm involved in a nonprofit called Natural High, which creates videos with athletes, musicians, and artists for middle schoolers to try to talk about their natural high as opposed to obviously drugs and alcohol. We're in about 20,000 schools across the country, and it's pretty passionate to me because I did lose a daughter to a drug overdose. And I'm also working with, Barry Bloom. You know the name?
The writer for the San Diego Union?
Oh, yeah, he was the evening writer. And of course, as you know, in the evening, you can't write about the game because it was written about in the morning. So he was a little bit of a pain in the butt. But he and I became friends. And so I saw him one day and I said, I'm writing a timeline of my time with the Padres for my kids and grandkids. And he said, why don't we do a book about the 84 season with some of the untold stories? And so what I've been doing for the last few years with him is going around talking to players who were there, people that had worked in the organization. And I think there's some, it's not really about the games. It's more about how the team got built.
Right.
And so I've been having a lot of fun doing that. And, you never quite know what kind of reception you're going to get. I wasn't friendly with players. I mean, it was a business. We recently had the 40th reunion of the 84 team at Petco, and I think there were 15 players there. And, I've been actually overwhelmed by the response I got. So,
wow, that's great. Hey, before we wrap up, I meant to ask you about, you left the Padres in roughly 87, but that didn't terminate your relationship with the Krocs, because you remained as a member of the Board of Trustees till 1996 or 1997. What was that experience like? I mean, were you responsible for the Big Mac, or, green shakes on St. Patrick's Day? What kind of things did you do?
As much as I appreciate the fact that Ray entrusted me with trying to run the team. I mean, obviously McDonald's was his baby.
Yeah.
And he'd had a stroke in 1979, could no longer go to board meetings. And for him to agree that I could go on the board, I considered a big honor.
Right.
So, and McDonald's is an amazing company. They really take care of their employees. I think they really care for their customers. And, it's obviously been pretty successful. What are there, 30 or 40,000 McDonald's?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Do you think that the movie The Founder, starring Michael Keaton, adequately portrayed Ray, or was a fair portrayal of Ray?
No. I said no.
No, I don't at all. And I heard this from Fred Turner, who was a longtime CEO of McDonald's and was really the operations guy that built the company. And Ray wanted the McDonald brothers to open some more McDonald's so he could sell the multi-mixers. So then they wouldn't do it, so he signed an agreement with them. But the agreement apparently made it hard in some aspects to expand. And the McDonald brothers came to Ray and said, we want you to buy us out for $1 million each after taxes. And that's what happened. Mm-hmm. It wasn't Ray trying to steal any interest they had in the company. And I think their deal, and I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I think at one point they were getting 1% of the revenue.
Wow. No. Nice.
How would you like to have 1% of that revenue now, huh?
Wow. Even then. I'd like to have 1% of it even then.
I'd like to have 1% of that, but rather than 100% of anything that I ever came close to.
Yeah.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Ballard, thanks so much. You've been a terrific guest.
Really interesting.
I think we could have kept going on for another hour or so, but we hit the highlights of your life and your great career as a sports executive and a member of McDonald's Hall of Fame, and what you're doing now. It's a life well lived.
Yeah,
let's say that.
Yeah.
Where were you guys back? Are you in San Diego?
No, in Pasadena. I moved out of San Diego in 1984, and I moved up here to become a television producer. But I kept in touch with Andy and all of you guys. I sort of kept my distance from you because back then I was a shy guy, and you were, president of a sports team. But
Okay, so when you get down to San Diego, you need to call me so we can go to lunch.
Great.
Oh, wow.
And
Very
we'll,
nice.
we'll call Andy and we'll bring him to lunch.
No,
too.
I'm very serious about it.
Yeah.
Oh,
we'll do it. We'll do it for sure.
Be great.
Do it for sure.
Absolutely great,
Ballard,
Ballard. Real
Ballard,
pleasure to meet you.
Ballard, I just want to say, in order to make that happen, you're going to have to reach out to him and force him to get on the road to go to San Diego.
No. I admit I haven't been to San Diego to a game since they moved into Petco Park, but I'll get down to San Diego for sure.
But you need to do that because I think it's the best park in the major leagues.
Yeah, I agree.
That's right in the heart of downtown San Diego. It's amazing.
Yeah,
to me.
I was down there last year, but I didn't go to a game. I stayed right by the stadium, and they were playing somebody, but I couldn't make it to the game. But it was a.
Can I just tell you one final quick story?
Sure.
They created this unbelievable atmosphere at that ballpark, and they've obviously realized that the best team is going to lose 30 home games, so they've made it into a total experience. And when I was at that playoff game, and you watch people just hugging each other, and baseball is such a great way to bring a community together. We did that in 1984. They did that this year. Unfortunately, we didn't get as far as we could, but I sure think they're on the right road, and I'm excited about the future for them.
Great.
Oh, that's lovely.
Us too. Thank you so much again.
Ballard, again, nice meeting you, man.
Be well.
One day at a time, my brother. One day at a time.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Great guest.
Great guest. Yeah, very interesting, man. My God, he's done an awful lot of things that have crammed into his existence there. Huh?
Yep.
Done a lot of sports management and
For sure.
Padres. Cool.
Well, it sounds like
Board of directors at McDonald's. I mean, can you imagine how big that must have been?
Yeah.
That was. Anyway, we got to go.
Yeah, we do. Sounds like we're going to need a lot more baseball, according to Billy, since we need to bring the country together.
Yeah. For sure. On that, see you,
On that
folks.
note, thanks very much for looking in, people. We appreciate you.